After transmigrating into a tragic romance novel, I became the male lead, and my domineering CEO girlfriend happened to have a younger brother who had been hospitalized for years. In the middle of the night, she got another call, hurriedly putting on her clothes. Albert isn't feeling well again. I have to go see him. According to the original plot, I was supposed to cry and beg her not to leave. Unfortunately, as I watched her anxious figure disappear into the night, all I felt was the urge to yawn. The moment she stepped out, I invited her voluptuous arch-nemesis over to my place. The next day, I made sure to call her on video right when she was supposed to be at the hospital by his side. Watching her expression turn stormy, I drawled lazily, "What's wrong? Weren't you off taking care of someone else?" The house felt too empty, so I found someone to keep me company. Isn't that normal? Don't get the wrong idea. We're just pure friends. I'm exhausted, so could you please not make a scene? Before she could explode, I hung up. After all, if she can have a brother, why can't I have a sister? Chapter 1. The moment the video call ended, silence swallowed the living room. Violet arched an eyebrow, leisurely tying the sash of her bathrobe, covering the tempting glimpse of her collarbone and curves. She let out a soft laugh, her tone dripping with mischief. "I'm guessing President Kim will storm back in 10 minutes, tops." I lounged lazily on the couch, lifting my glass of red wine for a sip. 5 minutes. As soon as the words left my mouth, the front door slammed open with a deafening bang, as if someone had kicked it in. Elise Kim was back. Her eyes were bloodshot, her chest heaving with fury. Her gaze first sliced toward the unruffled Violet, then locked onto me. Her voice came out through gritted teeth. "Sean, you'd better have a damn good explanation for this." I swirled the wine in my glass, acting as though her blazing rage was invisible. "Explain what?" I looked up with feigned innocence. "I just invited a friend over to hang out." "Is that a crime now?" "A friend?" Elise let out a laugh full of disbelief. She stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. "A friend who chats with you in a bathrobe. Sean, have you completely lost your shame?" The disappointment and anger in her eyes could have swallowed me whole. If this were the original Sean, he'd probably be broken by now, crying, begging, trying to defend himself. Unfortunately for her, I wasn't him. I calmly pulled my hand free, rubbing the red mark she'd left on my wrist. My voice stayed light, almost bored. "Elise, could you please stop being unreasonable? We were just watching a movie together." She'd just finished showering. "That's all. You being this paranoid is exhausting." Every single word was something she used to say, back when she was brushing off the original Sean's pain. Elise froze, her face paling and flushing by turns. She clearly couldn't believe she was hearing her own words thrown back at her. Beside me, Violet sighed dramatically, lifting her hands in a helpless gesture. "President Kim, don't take it personally. Sean and I always joke around like this. He really doesn't see me as a woman. But since you hate me so much, I'll leave." Her act, that classic pretentious coquette routine, was flawless. I immediately caught Violet's wrist before she could move, giving Elise a look of mock reproach. "Why are you being so mean to her?" "Elise, when did you become this petty?" "Petty?" Elise was shaking with rage. "She's another woman showing up in our home in the middle of the night, and you're defending her. What about Albert then?" I finally dropped the act, smiling faintly. "He's a man too, isn't he? He calls you in the dead of night, and you rush to his side, but you don't call that improper." I took a step closer, locking eyes with her blazing stare, pinning her in place with every deliberate word. "You can treat Albert like a brother, so why can't I have Violet as my sister? Don't be a hypocrite, President Kim." Elisa's lips trembled, but not a single word came out. Trapped by her own logic, she could only slam the door behind her and leave without a sound. The living room sank into silence once more. I exhaled slowly and turned to Violet. "Thanks. Sorry you had to witness that circus tonight." Violet's playful mask faded, pouring herself a glass of wine. She looked at me, her gaze complicated. "Sean, do you remember back in college, during the debate competition, when you argued me into silence?" I blinked, surprised. She chuckled at herself. "Back then, I thought you were someone who belonged in the sunlight, confident, sharp, untouchable. Not like this, trapped and burning yourself out for a woman who doesn't deserve you." Setting her glass down, she met my eyes seriously. "Elise doesn't cherish you, that's her loss. I'm not helping you for fun. I just think, you shouldn't be like this." Looking into her earnest eyes, I felt something stir, the resentment that belonged to the original Sean finally easing. Just a little. Yes, I shouldn't be like this, and that pitiful man shouldn't have ended that way, either. I pressed a hand to my chest, resolve hardening in my eyes. No rush. This is only the beginning. All the pain the male lead of this tragic romance endured, it's time for those heartless women to taste it back. Twice as bitter. Chapter 2. The next day, Elise didn't come home. I enjoyed the peace and quiet, even managed to get the best night's sleep I'd had in a long time. It wasn't until evening that the villa door finally opened again. Elise walked in, supporting a frail-looking figure, the same man I'd seen countless times in her photos, Albert. He wore a loose white tracksuit, his face pale to the point of translucence. The oversized clothes only made his thin frame look even more fragile, giving him a sickly, delicate air that seemed ready to shatter at a touch. Elise deliberately avoided my gaze, setting Albert's suitcase down with a thud before announcing firmly, "The doctor said Albert's body is still weak and needs rest. From now on, he'll be living here so I can take care of him more easily." She paused, then added coolly, "You can just make an extra portion when you cook. It's not much trouble." Albert smiled faintly, a soft, practiced smile. He shot me a quick, triumphant glance before linking his arm with Elise's and speaking in a gentle, pitiful tone. Eli wouldn't stop worrying about me being alone. She insisted I move in. "You don't mind, do you, Sean?" He bit down on my name deliberately, soft, slow, and laced with smug provocation. I opened my mouth to speak, and then a sharp, stabbing pain ripped through my chest. It was the original Sean's shattered soul screaming in fury. He was raging, howling at Elise, demanding to know why she would bring that man into his home, demanding that he be thrown out immediately. The force of that anger almost drowned out my own rationality. I took a deep breath and pressed a hand to my chest, forcing myself to stay calm. When I looked up again, I was smiling, bright and warm. "Of course I don't mind. Why would I mind? Welcome, Albert, little brother." Both Elise and Albert froze, visibly thrown off, ignoring their expressions. I went on with cheerful ease. "Elise is right. You're not well, you need care. And having one more person around livens up the house. I get lonely by myself anyway." Then I clapped my hands together as if something had just occurred to me. "Speaking of which, it's perfect timing. The house is about to get even livelier." Elise frowned. "What do you mean?" I tilted my chin toward the door. "Violet's company and apartment are both being renovated. Lots of dust. Bad for her health. She's been staying in hotels, and I couldn't let her keep doing that. So I invited her to stay here for a while." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I pressed the remote, and Violet entered, pulling a silver suitcase behind her. She was dressed casually, and when she saw the scene in the living room, she raised an eyebrow in mock surprise. "Well, everyone's here," she said with a wink at me, then turned to the now black-faced Elise Kim. "President Kim, looks like I'll be bothering you for a while. You don't mind, do you?" The air froze instantly. Albert's smile stiffened, and Elise's face twisted like she'd just swallowed a fly. Perfect. Things were about to get interesting. On the first morning of our four-person cohabitation, the tension was already thick enough to taste. Albert was up early, wearing a blue apron, gently setting down a bowl of carefully cooked abalone porridge in front of Elise. "Eli, try it," he said softly. "I simmered it all night. I just don't know if it suits Sean's taste. He tends to wake up later." I pretended not to hear the jab and walked straight to the counter, pulling 4 eggs out of the fridge. Elise frowned, her tone sharp with authority. "Albert made breakfast. Sit down and eat." I ignored her completely, lighting the stove and pouring oil into the pan. With a loud sizzle, the fragrance of frying eggs filled the kitchen, strong, rich, and defiant, completely overpowering the mild scent of his watery porridge. I cracked 4 eggs, cooking them to perfect soft yolks. 2 went on my plate, the other 2, on another. Elise's temples twitched violently. "Sean, must you do this?" she snapped. "Do what?" I speared a yolk with my fork, watching the golden liquid ooze out slowly. After taking a leisurely bite, I looked up with an innocent smile. "You have your loving breakfast, and I have my high-protein meal." "Oh, right." I pointed to the extra plate beside me. "That's for Violet. She's helping me with heavyweight training later. Needs the energy." Chapter 3. Carrying the 2 plates. I ignored their expressions and walked straight into the villa's private gym. Violet was already there, having just finished a warm-up set. Her fitted sports bra traced every perfect curve of her body, a light sheen of sweat glistening on her skin, exuding that intoxicating mix of vitality and allure. "Your energy supply." I handed her the plate. She took it without hesitation and began eating, utterly at ease. An hour later, Elise appeared at the doorway, her expression dark as a storm cloud. She had probably come to pick a fight, but the moment she saw what was happening, she froze. I was in the middle of my final set of weighted squats, muscles trembling with exhaustion. Violet stood right behind me, wearing her sports top and yoga pants, sweat sliding down the elegant line of her back. Her hands rested firmly at my waist, her palms hot even through the thin, sweat-soaked fabric of my shirt. "I can't lift anymore," I panted. "Don't give up." Violet's voice came soft and teasing, brushing against my ear. "Feel your glutes engage. Yes, just like that. I've got you. Don't be afraid." Her body pressed flush against my back, moving in sync with mine, close enough to feel every breath. From Elise's angle, it looked like Violet was practically embracing me. Bang! Elise finally snapped, slamming her fist into the doorframe. Both Violet and I turned to look. My face was flushed and beaded with sweat from the workout. Violet, calm as ever, straightened up, lazily wiping her chest with a towel before meeting Elisa's gaze with deliberate provocation. President Kim, she said lightly, starting the day with such a temper. Elisa's eyes blazed with fury. She stared at the faint outline of Violet's handprints on my damp shirt, lips trembling, but no words came out. What could she even say? That it was inappropriate for a man and woman to be that close. While her dear brother Albert was sitting in the dining room waiting for her. That our position looked indecent. When she'd personally massaged Albert's sprained ankle just last night. Watching her face twist between rage and restraint, torn between wanting to explode and knowing she had no right to, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. For the first time, the bitterness in my chest loosened just a little. Still catching my breath, I turned to Violet and flashed a deliberately sweet smile. Thanks, Violet. With you by my side, I feel unstoppable. Elisa's fists clenched so tight her knuckles cracked audibly. That night, after I finished showering, my bedroom door suddenly swung open. Elise stood there, reeking of alcohol, her eyes bloodshot. She stepped closer, the scent of her perfume mingling with the sharp tang of liquor, enveloping me completely. Before I could react, she shoved me hard against the wall. Sean, she rasped, her voice hoarse and trembling with suppressed rage. What the hell do you want from me? Before I could answer, her burning lips crashed onto mine. The kiss wasn't tender, it was violent, full of anger and punishment. It wasn't a kiss at all, it was the bite of a wounded beast. I frowned in disgust, and when she tried to deepen it, I turned my head away sharply, breaking her hold. Her movements halted, her chest rose and fell violently, as if she were struggling to restrain something deep inside. After a long silence, she buried her face against my neck. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a trace of grievance. Do we really have to be like this? You weren't like this before. I almost laughed out loud. When the original Sean had given her everything, his love, his loyalty, his heart, she hadn't even blinked. Now that I was simply returning her own coldness to her, she suddenly wanted to play the victim. I placed my hand on her chest, feeling her heartbeat pounding furiously beneath her shirt. My tone was gentle, almost teasing. Are you jealous, Elise? Her body froze instantly. She jerked her head up, staring at me through the dim light. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Finally, as if I'd struck a nerve, she stepped back in panic, turned around, and slammed the door behind her, running away in silence. The next day, I was at the largest luxury boutique downtown, helping Violet pick out a silk scarf, a small thank you for her friendly performance over the past few days. When I handed over my black card at checkout, the cashier hesitated, then returned it with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, sir, your card has been frozen. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Elise, condescending, cold, and full of self-righteousness. When you figure out how to be a proper husband, then you can come find me. Until then, all your cards are suspended. So that was her move. She thought she could control me with money. She thought I'd panic, like the original Sean, desperate and helpless, begging to be taken back. I looked at the message and smirked. Then I pulled out another phone and made a call. Attorney Logan, this is Sean. I'd like to activate the trust fund my mother left me, starting today. By 3 in the afternoon, I was standing on stage at a major investment press conference, wearing a sharp black suit. I stood beside Violet, now not just my accomplice, but my official business partner. The cameras flashed so intensely they nearly blinded me. I faced the reporters and smiled brightly. I knew Elise would see this broadcast. She had to. The press conference ended in thunderous applause. As I stepped off the stage, Violet handed me a glass of champagne. Congratulations, Sean, she said with a smile that carried both pride and warmth. That was one hell of a comeback. I lifted my glass to hers. Thanks. Just as our glasses were about to clink, the phone in my bag started vibrating wildly. I glanced at the screen, over 20 missed calls, all from Elise. I ignored them, ready to turn the phone off entirely. But then it lit up again, this time showing the number from the Kim family estate. I hesitated, then answered. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, followed by a deep, commanding voice, old, but sharp as ever. Sean, came the stern rebuke. Have you caused enough trouble yet? Chapter 4. On the other end of the line, Chairman Kim's voice carried an imperious authority that brooked no argument, as if I were still the soft, pliable pushover their family could toy with at will. I'm making a scene. I let out a cold laugh. Chairman Kim, have you gone senile? Your daughter brought her side guy home, cut off my credit cards, and now, somehow, you're saying I'm the one causing trouble. There was a pause. He clearly hadn't expected me to snap back with such sharpness. You, what about me? I cut him off. Why don't you get your useless daughter in line first? As for me, from today on, I'll do whatever the hell I want. Before his thunderous fury could reach me through the receiver, I hung up. For the next few days, The villa was eerily calm. Elise Kim, for once, didn't run off to see Albert. Instead, she tried, awkwardly, to repair things between us. She knew the annual Starlight Charity Gala was coming up. It was the biggest showcase in the business world, and the Kim family couldn't afford to lose face there. That night, I put on the black tuxedo I'd prepared long ago, sharp, elegant, impeccable. Elise stood behind me, fastening my bow tie. In the mirror, her gaze was complicated. After tonight, let's talk properly, she said softly, hugging me from behind, almost pleading. We'll send Violet and Albert away, and we. Her words were cut short. Her phone started ringing, right on cue. It was the hospital. Elise's face drained of color. On the line, a nurse's urgent voice burst through. Mrs. Kim, Mr. Albert just fell down the stairs. His condition looks bad. Please come immediately. I watched her reflection in the mirror, panic etched across her features, and felt nothing but cold amusement. Such a clumsy act. She hung up, eyes flickering with guilt and hesitation. Sean, Albert. I have to go. You, go ahead, I said calmly, adjusting my cufflinks. I wasn't planning to go with you anyway. Elise froze for a second, then fury flared in her eyes. Her voice turned icy. Sean, I'm warning you, stay home tonight. Don't you dare embarrass me. Without waiting for my reply, she grabbed her keys and stormed out. Half an hour later, at the Starlight Charity Gala, when the grand golden doors of the ballroom opened once more, every pair of eyes turned toward the entrance. I walked down the red carpet, arm in arm with Violet. She wore a custom black haute couture gown, elegant, regal, mesmerizing, and I was her calm, steady counterpart. Whispers rippled through the hall, thick enough to shake the ceiling. Everyone knew Elise had skipped the gala for her good boy. Everyone was waiting to watch me, the legitimate husband, make a fool of myself. Under the flashing cameras, the host offered us the microphone. Mr. Sean, Miss Violet, your joint appearance tonight, does it imply a deeper collaboration between the Starlight Foundation and Violet Technologies? Violet took my hand, lifted it to her lips, and kissed it lightly. With a serene smile to the cameras, she said, Starlight is Violet Technologies' most cherished partner. And Sean, she turned to me, her eyes full of warmth, is the most important person in my life. The entire hall gasped. I knew it was probably just a line meant to provoke Elise, but when I met Violet's gaze, so deep, so unwavering, my heartbeat stuttered. Just for a moment, for the first time, I couldn't tell what was real and what was not. I knew this scene was being broadcast live across countless screens, on the television in a hospital VIP ward, on the phones of our business rivals, and on the massive screen inside the Kim family's ancestral home. My phone buzzed, a multimedia message. I opened it. A high-resolution photo appeared. In a cold white hospital corridor, Elise Kim was slamming her bloodied fist against a glass wall. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass, and blood dripped through her fingers, one crimson drop at a time, onto the sterile floor. Chapter 5. Violet reached from behind me, took my phone, and pressed the screen dark. Her voice was low and measured. Feeling sorry for her? I blinked, coming back to myself, then met her probing gaze with a short, derisive laugh. Sorry for her? I raised my glass of champagne and drained it in one go. No, I just find it ridiculous that she's jealous now. After everything I gave her, everything I did for her, how could she never see it? My tone was calm, but only I knew that beneath that stillness, the resentment of the body's original owner was roaring inside me. It questioned, it raged, it wept. Violet was silent for a moment. Then she patted my shoulder lightly. Then make her pay for it. Of course. I looked out at the glittering city lights beyond the window. The defensive game is over. Now, it's my turn to attack. The next day after the gala, I didn't return to the villa. Instead, I went straight to meet a private investigator, reportedly the best in the entire city, found through my lawyer. I pushed Albert's file across the table. My request was simple. I want everything. Every medical record from birth until now. The more detailed, the better. Especially from that private hospital he always goes to. I want to know what exactly he's been doing every time he's supposedly in critical condition. The investigator worked fast. 3 days later, a file arrived in my inbox. As I opened it, a slow, cold smile spread across my face. Albert's official diagnosis was congenital myocardial fragility, a term that sounded severe, but was conveniently vague. Yet the raw data the investigator uncovered told a different story. His key medical reports, like the Holter monitor results and echocardiograms, had clearly been tampered with and overwritten. Even more interesting was his dutiful attending physician, Dr. Sam. According to the report, Sam was Albert's mother's distant cousin. In other words, his uncle. A long-running deception, carefully orchestrated by family, finally stood exposed. I scrolled through the pages one by one until I stopped at a surveillance photo. It was from the night of the Starlight Gala. Less than an hour after being rushed into the ER, Albert appeared at the hospital's back entrance, alive and well, getting into an unfamiliar car. He didn't return until the next morning, and Elise, the fool, had probably spent that entire night waiting outside his ward. I shut the laptop. The emotions boiling in my chest were on the verge of exploding. Rage, bitterness, betrayal, mine and the original owners, tangled together. Knowing the truth wasn't enough, I wanted her to tear apart that precious boy's, pure and fragile, mask with her own hands. I picked up my phone and called Violet. I need a favor. I need you to use all your connections to bring me the best cardiologist in the country. No, in all of Asia. Violet didn't disappoint. 2 days later, she told me that the top authority in Asian cardiac surgery, Academician Chan, was in town for a medical forum. He owed the Violet family a favor, and agreed to help with the diagnosis. So, I returned to that sickening villa. Surprisingly, dinner that night was almost civil. Elise, likely scolded by her father, kept a cold face and said little. Albert played the doting gentleman, filling her plate, speaking softly, pretending to be all tenderness and care. The disgusting display of affectionate siblings made my skin crawl. After dinner, the servants brought in fruit. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, I reached into my bag and pulled out a neatly wrapped gift box, placing it in front of Albert. Albert, I said with a polite smile, I picked this out especially for you. Elise and Albert both froze. Under their wary, uncertain gazes, Albert slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay a brand new portable home heart rate monitor, the latest model. Albert's face went instantly pale, all color draining away. Chapter 6. I acted as if I hadn't noticed anything, smiling warmly as I began to explain. I heard from a friend that this model is extremely sensitive. The data even uploads to the cloud in real time and syncs directly with your attending physician. That way, even when Eli isn't around, she can still keep track of your condition anytime. See, I'm really looking out for you, aren't I, Albert? Elise frowned slightly, but there wasn't a single flaw to be found in my words. Everything sounded perfectly considerate. Albert's hands trembled faintly as he held the device. He forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Thank you, Sean. It's just, I'm used to the hospital's equipment, so maybe. Oh, that won't do. I cut him off, pretending to be worried. Your illness is the kind that can worsen suddenly. Oh, speaking of which, I changed my tone to one of eager excitement. I happened to run into an acquaintance today. He's close friends with the top cardiologist in all of Asia, Academician Chan himself. When I mentioned your rare condition, he was deeply concerned and arranged for Chan to personally conduct a full evaluation for you. No, I don't need it, he shouted, his reaction far too strong to pass as mere fear. Elise immediately stepped in front of him protectively, glaring at me. Sean, what are you trying to pull this time? Albert's body can't handle your games. Games? I lifted my eyes lazily, my smile fading into cold steel. Elise, are you out of your mind? I got the world's top specialist for him. How is that supposed to harm him? Or, I leaned back slightly, voice dripping with ice. Is it because you already know there's something off about his illness, and you're afraid a real expert might expose it? The air froze solid. Albert could no longer hold it together. His face went chalk white. Tears welled in his eyes, half terror, half panic, as his voice broke. Eli, my chest, it hurts. I can't breathe. Same old trick, but this time, I didn't give him a chance to finish his act. I pulled out my phone and, right in front of them, dialed 120. Hello, emergency. This is the Ocean View Villa. A patient here appears to be having a heart attack, urgent condition. We've already arranged a consultation with Asia's leading cardiologist, Academician Chan, at City First Hospital. Please send him directly there. The moment I finished, Albert, who had just been collapsing weakly in Elisa's arms, shot upright like he'd been electrocuted, screaming. No, I'm not going to the hospital, I'm fine. The shout was full-bodied and powerful, so strong it left the entire living room in stunned silence. Elise looked down at the men in her arms, the same men who, moments ago, claimed he was dying. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. That single, forceful, I'm fine, echoed through the room, cutting through the silence like a blade. But Albert, ever the practiced actor, recovered in an instant. After just 1 second of panic, his eyes filled with tears again, and he rolled them back, fainting cleanly on cue. In the end, Elise still called an ambulance and had him sent back to the hospital. I watched the scene unfold, expressionless, saying nothing, because I knew, once a seed of doubt takes root, it grows wild in the dark. Over the next few weeks, the villa fell into an eerie quiet. Elise became withdrawn and silent. She stopped visiting the hospital, stopped questioning me. Most nights, she stayed alone in the study until long past midnight. I knew what she was doing. She was investigating, and I was preparing her final surprise. A month later, under the name Mr. Kim, I sent out gold-embossed invitations to the city's elite, a celebration of Mr. Albert's miraculous recovery and triumph over illness, hosted in the Kim Estate Gardens. When Albert received his invitation, he was overjoyed. He believed this meant Elise had finally forgiven him, that this was her way of acknowledging him, of lifting him up to the stage he'd always dreamed of. Chapter 7. Albert agreed with pleasure, sending invitations to every friend he wanted to impress. That night, the Kim family garden blazed with lights and laughter. The place was packed with guests, champagne glasses clinking, polite smiles exchanged, every corner shimmering with the illusion of perfection. Albert, dressed in a navy blue suit, floated through the crowd, soaking in every look of admiration and envy like a man reborn. Elise, as the hostess, went on stage to give a brief speech. Her face looked pale under the lights, but her poise remained impeccable, only her eyes betrayed her, dark and bottomless like stagnant water. When the applause rose, I stepped forward slowly and took the microphone from her hand. "Thank you, everyone," I said with a warm smile, scanning the crowd. "As Eli's husband, I'm happier than anyone to see Albert's recovery. To celebrate this hard-won health, I've prepared a special surprise, something that captures his brave fight against illness. Let's enjoy it together." Albert's eyes gleamed with pride and anticipation. I snapped my fingers. The massive LED screen behind me flickered to life, but instead of a touching recovery montage, the footage showed a cozy cafe. In the video, Albert sat across from his attending physician, Dr. Sam, leisurely sipping coffee. Albert chuckled and said casually, "Uncle, next time don't use that same old excuse. Eli's getting tired of hearing about angina attacks. How about we go with sudden respiratory failure? Sounds scarier, doesn't it?" Sam laughed, shaking his head. "You really are something else. But don't worry, Eli's soft-hearted. As long as I say your condition is critical, she'll drop everything to run to you." "Of course," Albert replied smugly, brushing his hair back. "That woman will never escape from the palm of my hand." The music stopped, the laughter vanished. A suffocating silence swept across the garden. Every guest turned toward Albert, who now stood frozen, color drained from his face, trembling on his feet. "No, no, it's not true," he shouted hoarsely, shaking his head in desperation. "It's fake. It's a setup. Eli, you have to believe me." But this time, no one stepped forward to catch him. Elise stood beside me, motionless. She didn't even look at him. Her face was ghostly white, drained of all life, as if something inside her had shattered completely. The celebration had become a public humiliation. Albert broke down under the weight of the guests' scornful stares, screaming, cursing, flailing, until his parents finally dragged him away like a heap of discarded trash. One by one, the guests made their quiet exits, leaving the grand garden in ruins, broken glass, overturned chairs, the echo of what once passed for elegance. Only Elise and I remained among the wreckage. She turned toward me, eyes red and raw, staring as if trying to burn a hole through my soul. "Why?" Her voice was cracked, barely human. "Why did you have to do it this way?" "This way?" I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Then tell me, what other way was there? Should I have begged you to believe me again, just to get slapped awake, or knelt before you, pleading for you to see the truth, only to be called an abusive husband?" She fell silent, lips trembling, her face ashen. After a long moment, she closed her eyes in pain. When she opened them again, there was something pitifully soft, almost pleading, in her gaze. "Sean, I was wrong. I was blind. I was cruel. Please, let's just forget everything. Let's start over." "Okay. Start over." I looked at her as if she were a stranger. "Elise," I said softly, almost tenderly, "you must be wondering why I've changed so much, right?" She blinked, confused, clearly not understanding where this was going. I stepped closer. In her widening eyes, I gave her the final truth. "It's simple," I whispered, "because I'm not him. I'm not the man who loved you, who built a future for you, who swallowed every insult just to stay by your side." Chapter 8. I paused, then spoke each word slowly, clearly, like a verdict passed down from hell itself. "He's already dead." Elise's pupils contracted sharply. She stumbled back a step, as if struck by lightning, her lips trembling. You're lying. Lying." My smile turned cold, yet almost pitying. "Have you forgotten? 3 months ago, he begged you not to abandon the acquisition because of Albert's lies, and in front of everyone, you slapped him. He lost all hope and jumped from the hospital rooftop. He's dead, Elise. He died that very day. As for me, I'm nothing more than a stranger who took over his body. I came here for one reason only, to make you taste what he felt, to let you experience what it means to lose everything, your love, your power, your world." Elise's face drained from white to the color of ashes. She stared at me, unable to speak a single word. At last, she understood. What she had lost was never just love. It was her husband's life. I reached into my briefcase and took out a folded document, laying it gently on the table before her. "Sign it. You and he have long been separated, by life and death." Then, I slowly slipped the wedding ring from my finger and tossed it away. It landed in the champagne bucket beside her with a sharp clang, sinking to the bottom. Goodbye, Elise. I turned without hesitation. No, better yet, never again. As I walked toward the exit of the garden, her broken sobs echoed behind me. At the gate, a black Bentley waited quietly under the dim lights. The door opened, Violet leaned casually against the car, extending her hand toward me. I placed my hand in hers and slid into the warmth of the car. The engine purred to life, and we sped away, leaving nothing but silence and ruin behind. 1 year later, at the top floor of Starlight Technologies, the skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Violet approached with a cup of coffee, wrapped her arms around me from behind, and rested her chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? I pointed to the open business magazine on my desk. On the cover, me, sharp-suited and confident. Under the headline, "The New Emperor of Business, Sean and His $1 trillion Empire." I was just thinking, I said with a quiet laugh. A year ago, I was worried about a frozen credit card. Violet chuckled softly. Then she picked up the tablet on my desk, swiped across the screen, and handed it to me. Look at this. It might make you feel even better. On the screen was a news article. The headline read, "Former socialite CEO Elise suspected of mental breakdown, seen wandering outside a psychiatric recovery center at midnight." In the photo, a thin, disheveled woman with lifeless eyes stared blankly at a street lamp. There was nothing left of the proud, radiant woman she once was. The article went on to say that the Kim Group, after a series of disastrous decisions and scandals, had gone bankrupt and entered liquidation. As for Albert's family, they were ruined after the infamous party, shunned by high society, forced to sell off everything and leave the city in disgrace. I glanced at the screen only once, then calmly switched it off. Don't you wonder, Violet asked softly, why she became like this? I turned toward the window, sunlight streaming across my face, and shook my head. No, because I already knew. What destroyed her wasn't bankruptcy. It wasn't losing her wealth or her reputation. It was the truth about death that I had personally revealed to her. For the rest of her life, every single day, she would be tortured by one thought. You killed him. That sentence would carve her soul open again and again, trapping her in a living hell of endless remorse, where death was a mercy she'd never reach. That was the ending I chose for her, the cruelest, and the fairest, one I could give on behalf of the men whose life she destroyed. At that moment, I could feel it clearly, the final trace of the original soul's cold resentment, once buried deep in my chest, finally dissolved under the warmth of the morning sun. A weight lifted, a strange lightness, a freedom I'd never known, flooded through every part of me. Violet seemed to sense the change. She tightened her arms around me, her voice cautious, almost tender. Is it over? I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of her embrace and the golden sunlight spilling through the glass. Then I turned and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. No, I said with a quiet smile, my life is only just beginning.